I already removed the airbox. I'm just taking out some vacuum hoses and clamps. And, just getting ready to pull out the intake manifold. There are 3 struts to remove. This hose clamp that's attached to the back of the intake manifold. It's held by one 10mm screw there, so I have to pull that out. And 6 screws for intake manifold, 8mm Allen wrench. Okay, I'm removing the radiator fan and shroud all together. And at the same time, I'll be draining the coolant from the radiator. The fan and the shroud come out together. I should have this nice open view after. I'll be taking out the serpentine belt, all the pulleys, and all the coolant housings. The intake manifold come out. Next is all the housing. Ignition coil, injector harness, and everything needs to come out. Okay, I just dropped the screw. And yeah, it sucks. So just to prevent anything from falling into the intake, I screwed it up. The radiator just in case with a piece of cardboard. Okay, I'll be taking out the crank bolt with the breaker bar that's attached to the frame. And we'll just give it a few cranks. But when I did that, I took the ignition coil out, and fuse for fuel pump needed to come out, so the engine didn't start. Okay. And all the coolant housing needs to come out, everything. power steering, pump, alternator, and AC pump needs to be put aside. And next is the valve cover removal. So this is the camshaft on top. So I believe this is bank 1. And bank 2 is the driving side. And the thermostat housing needs to come out. Lots of coolant, so make sure to have a big bucket underneath. Lots of coolant. Next, the water pump needs to come out. So they are held by either 12 mil or 10 mil bolts. So you have to keep them organized for later on. And then there are quite a few screws there. Okay, so water pump's out now. Now the oil, what's it called? The piece that oil filter attaches to needs to come off. Yeah, 4 or 5 bolts, so you're gonna have to have a little bucket underneath because the engine oil is gonna drip from there. Just give it a nice wipe. So this cam sensor, BVTI oil control valve needs to come out. Yeah, they need to come out to take the front cover out. So. So I'm taking all that screws that's holding the front cover I believe, I don't remember, but there are 22 or something like that screws altogether. Like 5 on that bank one side, and 6 on the bank two side, and 4 on the bottom, where the oil pan attaches to. Yeah, again, I would keep this organized really well for later on. Okay, so that's so you have 4 points to pry open the front cover from the engine. I hope I can show it here. Okay, so that's the organized ball to where things go. I can't count it, but some of there are 2 nuts and all the rest are bolts. Okay, so this is the first prime point there, and there's a second on the other side, and third at the bottom you can't really see, and another 4th one on the bank one lower side. There's a little notch. So as you can see in this picture, there are 4 points. So I used both pry bar and larger needle nose 90-degree angle to crack this. So I started prying from the left side and kind of like I did counterclockwise direction. And then in the end I was able to just pull it right out. So now you can see the timing chain. So it should be at the TDC. Everything's set up at TDC right now. Camshaft and timing mark should be lined up at this point. Just cleaning the silicone. Okay, so I decided to replace all timing chain kit. So that includes exhaust, valve cam cog, and center cog, and crankshaft cog, and chain tensioner, main chain and cam chain, and tensioner guide also. So when you're doing this, you have to make sure everything is lined up to the timing mark or the TDC. You might have to wiggle a little bit to give a slack to the chain to fit it in. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. So that's the old one that you just saw down there. So I put the chain guide on the bank 2 side, which is fixed one, and this is the chain tensioner side. You slide it to the pivot point, and then you're gonna have to install the tensioner on the side, on the upper portion. And then if you don't have too much slack in the chain, you might have to wiggle the camshaft a little bit to give it a bit of a slack. So you make sure to hand tighten these first. So my tensioner pin is still in there, it's not released yet. Okay, so crankshaft timing marks lined up with the chain, and there are 2 points in the crankshaft. So just to double check everything is lined up, you're gonna have to crank the engine 2 rounds, and then all the timing marks should line up at the crankshaft and all the camshaft at the same time. If you're not sure, you can double check, triple check, as many as you like. So every 2 revolution, all these cam timing marks should line up at the top. There. Down there also. So this is at the camshaft cog. And this is bank 1 exhaust cam and intake. And the bank 2 side, the point goes in between the 2. And this is bank 2 exhaust cam. That's what it looks like altogether. So I'm just torquing all that nuts and bolts. I think the camshaft was 72 pounds or something like that. just torquing all the clamps for camshaft. Torquing the chain tensioner. Everything needs to be spec to torque. Okay. Just torquing the guide tensioner guide on the driver's side. So when the original shop that did the head gasket work needed to take these both camshaft out, so just to make sure I didn't trust their work too much, so I'm making sure these clamps are not too tight or too loose, just all up to the spec, just torquing it down to the spec. You have to take your time and do it evenly, left, right, up and down. You always have to cross them. Okay, so this is a picture for front cover with a silicone bead already down. And you do have to practice, you have to kind of dry fit first before you attempt it. The keyway for the oil pump needs to be perfectly lined up. So you have to practice it a few times, and once you're comfortable, put the silicone bead on. And then just finish off, I guess. So the front cover goes in, and then water pump after that. And as you put the front cover on, hand tighten the bolt until you get the silicone squeeze a little bit, and I left it for an hour before torquing it as instructed. So now water pumps back on, and thermostat housing and oil filter housing, all that stuff needs to come back on. Okay, so it's time to torque the front cover and water pump. You have to take your time, like a little bit at a time, evenly, nice and even. And also do not forget there are 4 screws at the oil pan from the bottom up. So as you're torquing them, you can't forget these. Also, you have to torque it down from the bottom and to the side at the same time. make sure to change the O-ring for coolant housing. That one you see there. And there's another O-ring you have to change before you put on the front cover. And also for the O-ring for the oil pump needs to be changed as well every time you take this off. Talking down something. Okay, so the power steering pump, AC pump, and alternator needs to come back on. So for me, taking the AC compressor was a little bit of a headache. It's quite tight in there, so there are 5 bolts holding the bracket and 4 bolts holding the AC pump. They're a little bit difficult to access. So now I'm torquing down the crank bolt. I made this jig to hold it down. So when you do this, like when you torque the crank bolt, make sure to hold the crank. Use the crank harmonic balancer holding tool. Because I think what happened at the shop, they just used a pneumatic impact and created extra slack on the chain on the backbone side, which made the chain tension pop out a little further. So the chain was set up really tight, and the grinding, loud whining noise was from that really tightly set up chain. So in my case, the noise was coming from the tight chain, from that chain tension is set up too tight. And then this crank bolt, I believe the tension that was torqued down to 180 something, 185, 182. And now I'm torquing down all the belt pulleys. Oh, okay, I'm doing the alternator. Okay, so oil housing, coolant housing, thermostat housing is already back on. And then putting the serpentine belt. So yeah, so basically rewind, just put everything back how it came off. Okay, so I put the radiator fan and shroud back on, and the reservoir tank, and all the coolant housing should be on there already. And yeah, I'm just oiling the chain and camshaft, everything, as much as I can before I start it up. Putting the silicone on at the seam before you. There are 4 points you have to put the silicone before you pop back on the valve cover. Just at the seam where the head and the front cover meets. 2 points on each side. Just a bit of silicone just to make sure it's sealed. So I'll tighten it till the silicone squeeze out a little and then leave it for 1 hour to cool down. These little tricky corners, it's really easy to drop screws and stuff like that, so I use the magnet to tip the extension so I don't lose them. Okay, so more silicone on the side with the seam. So this 1GR-FE engine, it's very common to have some kind of oil leak right behind the power steering pump. It's a part of a front cover. So as I took the car originally to the shop, they attempted twice to seal it, and both times they failed to seal the section of a front cover where which happens to be just right behind the power steering pump. So the reason is the oil from the top on the back one side. When you have lots of oil residue left, it keeps trickling down to that section where near the power steering pump sits. So before you seal the front cover, you have to make sure all the oil, excess oil on the top is sucked up, wiped clean, so there's nothing to drip while the silicone is getting cured. So that's kind of an important tip you have to know. Otherwise, after all this work, you're going to have a leaky oil problem from just the back of the power steering later on. And yeah, you have to basically redo the whole thing, which is a big headache. So it's good to know ahead of the time. So the front cover is back on, and now I'm just putting back all the harness to the injectors and ignition coils and some of the vacuum lines, I believe. So all the plastic clips and screws and harness and sort of lines up where it should be, so it should be okay, like as long as you didn't mess up something really badly. But yeah, everything should line up if you bring the main harness to the where it used to be. Okay, it's kind of getting dark. So the spark plugs back on. So this time I took the spark plug off so that it's much easier to turn the engine. That's the only reason I took the spark plugs off. Okay, so I'm just attaching the ignition coil or spark plug cap to the valve cover. Okay, the next day now, all the silicone should be cured, and putting the intake manifold back on. So again, all you do is all the sensor clips and vacuum hose back into place. And I think it's 4 hex bolts and 2 nuts to hold this down. And the O-ring for the intake manifold is kind of out of shape, so I ended up changing that as well. So I'm just torquing down the intake manifold. So all the housing clips and everything in the back of the manifold is all done. And torque that down. So I ended up changing the O-ring for the throttle body. They were kind of really flat, so yeah, it's time for 3 metal brackets on the driver's side. 1 in front and 2 on the side. And air box. And then there's a 1 vacuum hose line. It's the very back of this thing, so we had to remember to hook that up. And then just 2 screws holding it down. And there's another big vacuum hose that goes underneath the air hose that needs to be attached. condenser, and the harness back on. Okay, and then there's a clamp for I think it's for AC, I believe.